Hello, Jacob, we're back at Shook Book, the vlog in which two actors discuss books that in one way or another leave them shook. I really appreciated your last video because it made me think about stuff that I've never thought before. So it's just never occurred to me that religious people think of their founders as people who had to sacrifice a lot to birth a movement. The narrative that it most closely reminded me of is the narrative of immigrants. My feelings about immigration and immigrants changed and complexified a lot after reading the novel Americanah by Chimamanda Adichie. I read this book a few months ago, and there's one passage that stuck with me ever since. At this point in the book, the main character, Efemelu, has immigrated to the United States from Nigeria, and she's now in college, taking a media class. This passage of the book occurs in the media class. A firm female voice from the back of the class with a non-American accent asked, "Why was the N-word bleeped out?" She didn't say the N-word. It says the word in there, but I don't want to say it. And a collective sigh, like a small wind, swept through the class. Well, this was a recording from network television, and one of the things I wanted us to talk about is how we represent history and popular culture, and the use of the N-word. It does say the N-word. Is certainly an important part of that, Professor Moore said. It makes no sense to me, the firm voice said. Efemelu turned. The speaker's natural hair was cut as low as a boy's, and her pretty face, wide-foreheaded and fleshless, reminded Efemelu of the East Africans who always won long-distance races on television. I mean, the N-word, she says it, is a word that exists. People use it. It is part of America. It has caused a lot of pain to people, and I think it is insulting to bleep it out. Well, Professor Moore said, looking around as though for help. It came from a gravelly voice in the middle of the class. Well, it's because of the pain that word has caused that you shouldn't use it. Shouldn't sailed astringently into the air, the speaker an African-American girl wearing bamboo hoop earrings. Thing is, each time you say it, the word hurts African-Americans, a pale, shaggy-haired boy in front said. Efemelu raised her hand. Faulkner's Light in August, which she had just read, was on her mind. I don't think it's always hurtful. I think it depends on the intent and also on who is using it. A girl next to her, face flushing bright red, burst out, "No, the word is the same for whoever says it." "That is nonsense," the firm voice again, a voice unafraid. "If my mother hits me with a stick and a stranger hits me with a stick, it's not the same thing." Efemelu looked at Professor Moore to see how the word nonsense had been received. She did not seem to have noticed. Instead, a vague terror was freezing her features into a smirk smile. "I agree it's different when African Americans say it, but I don't think it should be used in films because that way people who shouldn't use it can use it and hurt other people's feelings," a light-skinned African American girl said, the last of the 4 black people in class, her sweater an unsettling shade of fuchsia. "But it's like being in denial. If it was used like that, then it should be represented like that. Hiding it doesn't make it go away." The firm voice. "Well, if you hadn't sold us, we wouldn't be talking about any of this," the gravelly voiced African-American girl said in a lowered tone that was, nonetheless, audible. The classroom was wrapped in silence. Then rose that voice again. "Sorry, but even if no Africans had been sold by other Africans, the transatlantic slave trade would still have happened. It was a European enterprise. It was about Europeans looking for labor for their plantations." And one thing that I learned really clearly is that it's really different immigrating from Africa than it is from India. After all, lots of Indian Americans are immigrants, or they're like me, first generation. But Africans who immigrate here find a lot of African Americans who don't even know what their nationality is. Their roots run really, really deep in this country, and of course, a lot of those roots are really ugly. And I had never before considered the ways in which those two things can butt heads so strongly. Especially when I think about things like the N-word, which, of course, I couldn't even say when I was reading this passage because I've been taught so strongly that that word just can't be said. Even though, apparently, it's not a unilateral opinion that all African people or African Americans or Africans who live in this country, it's not something that's simple that everybody agrees with, even though to me it's always been presented that way. This book talks a lot about the need for Africans to please liberals and to kind of keep quiet or conform to the way liberal Americans think about race. So much of the reason that I love it too is because I would say it's about a girl who never feels like she belongs anywhere. I'm somebody who's always had a really hard time belonging, partially because I have a hard time making friends, but also because I feel like I tend to fall on the edge of categories sometimes. I'm neither an introvert nor an extrovert. I'm an ambivert. I'm neither white nor brown. I'm both and neither at the same time. I wonder if that is necessary, to look back at your ancestors or at the predecessors of whatever movement you're a part of or a group that you're a part of. And I wonder if to really feel connected to them, you have to feel like you belong in that group. I'm really curious, Jacob, as to what that means for you. And do you feel like you have to belong to have that sense of history in your everyday? That's all I got for now. Later, skater.